I'd like to call to order the 59th annual meeting of the Muskego Norway School District. This is the formal budget hearing, which is part of the annual meeting as required by Wisconsin Statute 65.9 subsection 4. The qualification for voting at the annual meeting as established by Wisconsin statutes include the following. You must be a citizen of the United States, 18 years of age or older, and you must be a resident of the school district for at least 10 days before any election per Wisconsin statutes 6.04. At this point, I'd like the school board members to introduce themselves. Can we start this end with Mrs. Blair?
Tracy Blair.
Bob Bowman. Brett Hyde.
I'm Rick Petfalski.
Eric Schrader.
Terry Boyer.
And Chris Buckmaster is unable to attend this evening. At this point, we're on item 2, election or appointment. Looking for nominations for election of the meeting chairperson.
I nominate Rick Petfalski to chair the meeting.
All right.
Second that.
Any other nominations? Any other? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you very much. I'd like to appoint Mr. Schrader as the parliamentarian for this evening. Moving on to item 3, President's Report. So I'm going to go over the board goals for this for the 18-19 school year. We have 3 goals that the board has set. The first item is responsible resource stewardship, and it's to support the development of strategic community partnerships that enhance alternative revenue avenues and student experience opportunities. Essentially, we want to go out in the community and find either different revenue streams for, I guess a good example of that would be the football field, the turf field, and the scoreboard were something that we did this past year where we found sponsorships for both of those. We realize that not everything in the school district can be paid for by taxpayer dollars, so we're trying to expand our revenue streams by finding alternative sources to revenue for the district. In addition, we're also reaching partnerships with businesses and other areas to enhance our student experience opportunities. We had 3 students here tonight that were speaking and sharing some of the experiences they've had with local businesses to gather real-world workplace experience, and those are good examples of some of the opportunities that we're looking for. Second item under board goals is under board development is to participate in the process of researching and considering a Muskego Norway educational foundation. Similar to the first goal, reaching a foundation is really a good way of not only enhancing revenue opportunities for a district, but it also is a good way of tying the community and others to the district where they actually have membership and have more buy-in and ownership to the district itself. A number of different districts around the county and area have set up foundations, and it's really just a nonprofit partner that works closely with the district to achieve a number of goals. And the last one, under item 3 under board governance, is to contribute to the Phase 2 master planning process, prioritizing the next steps to enhance facilities and student activity options as identified and supported by stakeholders. We have just finished up a large building project throughout the community. Part of that project was the referendum and all the schools that the referendum portions touched on. But in addition to that, we did things outside the referendum, such as the new swimming pool, the football field itself, the bleachers, scoreboard, and concessions, to name a few things. The master planning a number of years ago identified a number of additional facility upgrades and different planning opportunities that are out there. And part of this will be to reach out to the community and the stakeholders and reprioritize a lot of those items and to find out where the biggest needs really are and to identify them and to set a plan going forward on how to fulfill those needs. So that completes my president's report. Moving on to item 4, Superintendent's Report. Dr. Thompson.
Okay, thank you. Just to highlight some of the goals and sort of the organization of our system, we went through a 5-year strategic planning process last year, and that team, which comprised of community members, parents, administration, staff members, and students, reaffirmed our mission of every student learning. Throughout the year with the board and with the community. So annual goals around highly effective personnel relate to employee engagement, for example, and retention of staff. Those are things that we make sure that we put out in front of our community. Of course, we look at achievement and growth of our students as well as fiscal and specific things that relate to our fiscal health. And some of them were mentioned by Rick, actually, so we try to align our board goals with, the district goals, of course. So we have a couple of documents that we have on our website. We have a quality report, which is about 50 pages long, which really dives deep into the different measures that we look at and we track. There's a little description of what we measure and why it's important, what the goal is. So that's for our community. If you are interested in that, you just go on to our website under About, and you'll see district performance, and that's available to you. We also kind of try to highlight, 10 to 12 things each year and put it out there for our public. This is called a Fast Facts, so the 2018 Fast Facts. And we put a poster size, and we put it in front of each one of our buildings, including the ESC, to kind of highlight some of those aspects of our system that we want the community to be proud of and understand that we've worked hard to get some of those results. This is one set of data that I wanted to highlight in the area of the exemplary teaching and learning, is the performance of our students in English language arts in our K-8 and how we compare in Waukesha County. This is Muskego, Norway, and so we look at how, what percentage of our students in comparison to students throughout Waukesha County and the state. And you can see that we're second in the county for English language arts in proficiency-wise, advanced or proficient, second to Hamilton, and then the other districts are listed. Also, K-8 for math, we are actually number 1 in comparison to other Waukesha County school districts that are a K-12 institution. We also looked at students with IEPs. We track that cohort of students and that group of students to make sure that we're serving them. And similar to our full population, we're second for English language arts for our students in comparison to other Waukesha County school districts, and second in math as well. Certainly we see this as something to celebrate, but we also know that there's growth opportunities because we still see that there's, we don't have 100% of our students at the proficient or advanced level. So we definitely look at this as we're making strides. One of our long-term goals is to be a top 3 district, but we certainly won't stop there. We want to continue to make sure that we're doing well for all of our students. This just highlights a little bit of the other types of data that you'll see in the quality report if you do take time to go in there. We look at how students are doing on advanced placement. We look at, this is under continuous improvement. We look at how students, how many students are taking algebra by the time they're in a junior in high school. We want to make sure to track that. That's a readiness indicator for students to go on to post-secondary school. So we want to make sure that we're preparing as many kids as possible for that opportunity. And so we track that over the years. Students earning college credit. We've made concerted efforts over the last number of years to provide opportunities beyond advanced placement, a program called CAP, where students are able to take courses, college courses, here at the high school with high school teachers who are adjunct professors through Oshkosh. And so they're able to go through that experience and actually earn credit for both high school and for college. We actually have, for example, a chemistry opportunity for students where they can go through a year of chemistry and earn 10 credits in college for that opportunity. In the purple area, these are the this is an example of the highly effective personnel metrics that we track, and so this is retention, and again, our goal is 90%. This is support staff. This includes our custodial, our aides, our administrative assistants. Our teachers are next, and then administrators, and our goal line here. We weren't always at 90% or higher, especially with our support staff. They're part-time staff, and so we have to look for creative ways to keep them here and not go look for another full-time job somewhere. So we work hard at doing that. So some of the focus areas that we have, we're looking at building expertise in 6 high leverage practices. We've identified last year these 6 leverages, these academic focused areas for our students and for our educators to focus in on. And so we're looking to build some expertise in that through our professional development. We also piloted a program last year where we look to, what we do is we survey our students on their engagement, what's their perception of their experience in our school system. We provided specific feedback from students to teachers last year for those, through a pilot program, and we're looking to expand that out where more teachers are able to get those specific responses from students. It's not evaluative, it really is about their opportunity to reflect on what the experiences are like from the perspective of the students that they're serving. So that's another goal. Master Planning 2.0, that is something that President Petfalski had mentioned already. The Educational Foundation is another. We have a process called PDSA, which is a Plan, Do, Study, Act process of continuous improvement. And we have identified about 45 key work processes, and we've put them into a cycle of improvement. So there are lots of other things that we do, but they fall under these 45. And so what we do is between over a 5 to 7 year cycle, those things will come up. So we've always had curriculum cycles. So math would come up every 7 years or 5 years, and that still goes on. But now we have, for example, this year in the plan phase, in that study phase, is 4K, our 4K program, as well as our before and after school program. Some contracts such as transportation and food service. Those are things that have been put into that PDSA process, so that we're never okay with status quo, again, really focusing in on that continuous improvement. And then the last item here is that experiential learning and strategic community partnerships that President Pedofalski also mentioned. And this is just an outline of the 6 levels that we're looking to really embrace and move into operation for our students, so that they're having those light touches in a very systematic way, not just at the high school, but at the middle school and elementary school. 4-H, for instance, provides those opportunities, and we need to kind of provide opportunities for kids to kind of consider different types of careers earlier in their educational experience. And it moves up to a capstone experience, which is more of that spending many hours in a work experience, very focused into understanding what that type of career might be. Youth options is youth apprenticeship is an example of that type of experience. But it doesn't have to be just around manufacturing. We can look at all types of experiences for students, and so we're looking at expanding that out and really providing that opportunity for more students. So that concludes the superintendent's report.
Thank you very much. One more report. One more report, and that is treasurer's report. Mr. Hyde.
Thank you. On July 1st, 2017, the district's general fund balance was $21,711,345.16. Total unaudited general fund revenues for 2017-2018 are $54,023,879.93, while total unaudited general fund expenditures are $57,106,978.57. On June 30th, 2018, the unaudited year-end general fund balance is $18,628,246.52. The fund balance represents 32.62% of expenditures and positively reflects the board's ongoing commitment to maintain a healthy fund balance. This will preclude the district from needing to short-term cash borrow for a 2018-2019 school year. That ends the treasurer's report.
Thank you very much. All right, we're moving on to item 6, new business. So before we head into the annual budget hearing, I just want to explain a few things, as I do every year. There'll be options in here, or need in here, coming forward for a motion to be brought from the floor, a second. Questions can be brought forward at this point, but this meeting is participatory from all of you, so we would appreciate it if at some point during the meeting, or when it's appropriate, under item 6D, E, F, G, H, and possibly even item 7, to get a motion from the audience and a second, and so we can keep the meeting going. It's not a big deal. You just stand up, say your name, address, make the motion as you see fit. Typically, there's one in the book on what you can, what the motion should be. The item of board salaries, you can put any number you want in there, but some number has to be put in there, and I can assure you that no one from the board here will make that number, so it's going to have to come from the crowd. But anything you can do to help us along with this part of the process, we appreciate you being here, and any assistance for that part of the meeting would help us all keep the meeting going. So, and if you have any questions during this part, please let me know. I am going to go one thing, before I go to item 6, I just want to ask, were there any questions from anyone on any of the reports, as long as we have the people that made them, that anyone has anything specific? Yes, Mr. Pond.
This has
addition to?
Yes.
Charles Dupont, South 68, West 17607, East Drive. In your report, you talked about the donations that were made for the athletic fields and things like that.
Mhm.
Do those donations come with any sort of pails or hooks, or is there anything that the school district is responsible for beyond just taking the money and using it to build that particular project?
Typically, it's advertising. In fact, they were all advertising agreements. So they have, like, in the example of InPro, they funded a large portion of the actual field itself. Their logo is built into the field in 2 different areas. Their name's on the scoreboard, and there's various signage throughout the district with directional signage with their name on it. So that was the hook per se on it. But all the other advertisers for the scoreboard, they get so much airtime during a typical football game because it's an all-video scoreboard, so they'll have actual produced ads that are played certain times throughout the game.
So there's no future liability that the school district would have if something didn't happen, they didn't get enough advertising or something like that. There's no future liability.
Not that I'm aware of.
Thank you.
Sure. Any other questions? Good question. All right, at this point, we'll move on to item 6A, annual budget hearing, and Ms. Kelly will take over the meeting at this point.
And I will actually turn it over to Jeremiah, Director of Operations and HR.
I'm Jeremiah Johnson, Director of Operations and HR, and I'm just going to go through some of the transformation that our district has undergone over the past few years. And so it'll be a 2-part. One, we'll talk about the alternative revenue projects, and secondly, we'll be talking about the referendum projects. I'm actually going to start with the referendum projects. So you all might recall a few years back, the community approved $43 million, roughly, for projects to be completed. One thing that was really unique about this, that might be unique to other districts as well, is that we had so many moving parts. It wasn't just one school. It was multiple touches at almost every school in the district. So there's a large communication strategy, and thankfully the community supported the solution. The biggest of that project was Muskego Lakes Middle School, so it wasn't too long ago that when you drove down North Cape that you seen a farm field that the district had owned for well over 10 years. And so if you drive now, you'll see beautiful Muskego Lakes Middle School. It's a really unique facility. We took time as a leadership team and teachers even to go visit other sites around the state and figure out what exactly we wanted the school to look like. And we held many planning meetings with so many different stakeholders, hours upon hours of feedback from every single staff member that wanted to participate. And in the end, it's really cool to walk through because it was so driven by feedback from everybody. So you'll see when you go into the school, if you've made your way there already, that there's open concept learning. So there's very open spaces, flexible for sending kids to work independently or as groups. And it really just has a great feel to it. We visited a lot of brand new schools around the state that were dark and dungeony, and even the staff reflected in some of the visits that we went to the way that the building reflected. So it's a very great place. Mill Valley was, prior to construction, was 37,000 square feet, and it's now 77,000 square feet. So this was the day that they broke ground at Mill Valley, and essentially there was 2 corridors to the building that were salvaged, along with the old cafeteria gymnasium. One of the hurdles that we've had there for years is we've served lunch in the hallways and also did our lunch in the gymnasium. So now we have a dedicated gym that is being used full-time, both day and night, for activities and for the school. And we added on an entire kindergarten wing at the front of the building, you'll see, and offices and a library as well. We also tripled the parking spaces there and added on to the recreation area. Bay Lane, if you drive past, you might see a few signage changes. We lightened up the logo there a little bit for the Bobcats. Is now an all-elementary school, so one benefit to the neighborhood over there is there's only 2 traffic times, although those traffic times are pretty heavily trafficked. It's not multiple traffic times throughout the day. Inside the building, you'll find that nearly every classroom received new floors, ceilings, paint, cabinetry. There really was no storage before. And literacy areas, which are areas for sitting and learning. The lower level of Bay Lane, you might remember, had all science rooms. Each science room had a storage area, which played nicely because now they're all kindergarten rooms, which are really large, and those storage areas now serve as bathrooms. So this would be a bathroom off of a old science room. now kindergarten room. We were also able to upgrade the HVAC system there. So prior to this, it was controlled by 5 thermostats in the building. So if one person was cold and you turned it up 1 degree, then the other person was hot. So this gives a lot more regulation and control in every classroom. Because of the increase in elementary school students, we were able to remodel the playgrounds. There's now an additional playground on the lower level and then one on the upper level. And I'd love to send a shout out to all the parents that took part. The PTO really went to work with the budget we had and ended up getting a lot of clearance items for us to make great use of the space. In addition to the referendum projects, the board also approved extra spending for different projects that were identified by the master plan. The first being our stadium. So our old stadium did not have restrooms or a concession stand per se. Our seating, I believe, was lowest in the conference for seating for events. And our field, we were the last grass field in the conference. So the first thing we went to work on was the bathrooms and concession stand. So you might remember the old bathrooms to the left. We centered the master plan for the stadium is to have that on that area, and sometime in the future we'd love to put a parking lot in this area to really make it the front hub where people can come into the stadium. But if you attend any of the games, please attend this Friday where we're up against Franklin. It's a great hub. A lot of people are meeting and congregating in that area, and with that we also changed bleachers to the opposite side of the field. And that's for a couple reasons. The bleachers that were on the west side of the field were actually deteriorating. They were original to the stadium, and the ones on the current home side, or the former home side, were actually newer. So we expanded upon these bleachers so we could keep the other ones intact. And additionally, the sun is now at the back of the spectators rather than looking into the sun when you're at a football game. So I think we went up to 2,600 in capacity here, which allows us to host playoff events, such as we'll be putting on this Friday. Another goal of our group, but more importantly of the Gridiron, who helped to spearhead the fundraising effort, was to put in artificial turf. A lot of us for a long time were really impressed with our grass and thought grass was fine, but in all reality we only got 100 hours of use of our grass field throughout the playing season. We anticipate probably going up to about 5,000 hours of use now. So soccer, lacrosse, phy-ed, track and field, football at all levels, youth football. So if you come here on a Saturday, there's football from AM to PM. So really it's a well-used facility. There was a time when our field, just after a couple games in October, looked like that on the left. And this is last week's game, or 2 weeks ago. And obviously this is a consistent playing surface that the kids will have going through their experience. This project was completely fundraised through the Gridiron, and we have to thank Impro. They made a sizable donation to the project. And the life expectancy of turf is 10 to 12 years, depending on the care. But during that time, we're not having to water it, we're not having to cut it, we're not having to paint it. It's really a sustainable product. We are grooming it about once a month, which is just pushing crumb rubber back in to fill in the surfaces. In addition, our scoreboard on the left was I think nearing 30 years old. We could no longer get bulbs for the scoreboard itself, and if anybody attended a game last year, there was a couple events where we had to bring out this tiny little scoreboard that looked like a stopwatch, and we were able to Ryan McMillan worked diligently with people in the community, businesses, to fundraise for advertisement spots, as we talked about earlier, and we were able to put in a sizable scoreboard that allows for video to be projected, and we're using that for the people that are advertising on it, but also making student advertisements. And students that will learn to operate this board will also have the opportunity to go on to colleges and operate these boards because they have a hedge on the market for, say, most of the college systems in the state. So we're looking forward to that. We're also tinkering with ideas such as a movie night where we can bring the community in. Obviously, we don't have a drive-in theater, but this could be something we could watch movies on. And really possibilities are endless, not just for football, but for any co-curricular event and or renters such as youth football. Lastly, I'll talk about the pool. So for those of us that remember our pool was leaking. I think 2 years ago in June, we lost 10,000 gallons overnight. We still don't know where that water went, but it was leaking and needing repair. In addition, we learned that the graduated depth to the pool itself was grandfathered, but what we also learned was that the pool ceiling was too low, so we had to decommission our diving program. Through all of the planning and looking at the space, we were able to utilize the existing box that it's in, but expand out this wall right here. So we didn't have to build a separate standalone building. We were able to make a lot of cost savings by utilizing this box. So this was the concept that we came up through the planning session. This was the wall that got pushed out, and we went from 6 lanes to 8 lanes. We went from a student athlete seating, I'd say of 14 athlete seats. I think we had 2 benches over there, up to, I believe, 200 right now, and 400 spectators, which was up from 200. One thing that was really nice in the planning season, through the planning sessions, was adding natural light. For those of you that have been to swimming events throughout the area, typically pools are very dark, so spending a day in here is now nice. So the rendering, and this was just completed a couple months ago. We had the ribbon cutting, and it's fully in use now. And Tony, would you like to talk briefly about the fiber optic?
We've had Tony Spence, Chief Information Officer, 16 miles of fiber optic network cable put into the ground. This is connecting all of our buildings in the district, which allows us to step away from our leased fiber that we were paying for. We expect a return on investment in under 5 years. That's money coming back, more speed for data going into all of our district buildings. And that project just finished in the end of July. The benefits are, of course, beyond just speed and money savings, is connecting to a much larger network, which is a majority of Waukesha County, and of course, even heading east into Milwaukee County. Looking at things of redundancy, offsite hosting, and we have quite a bit of fiber in the ground, which makes us future ready as that goes. And the duration of a network, we're hoping lasts well over 30 years. And even once that would need to be replaced, the hard work is done. We have the conduit in the ground, which is a great opportunity for future opportunities to put more fiber in. So great upgrade for the district, and more speeds coming to the buildings.
Okay, good evening. My name is Julie Kelly, and I'm the Assistant Superintendent for Business, and I'm going to talk to you today a little bit about a recap of 17-18's budget. We'll look at the 2018-19 budget development, and also just briefly touch on the 19-20 budget as well. So again, when we look at the budget development process, the way that schools are funded is we are essentially given a pot of money, which is essentially called the revenue limit. And the revenue limit is made up of various factors. So we get money for certain residents, including summer school counts. The state looks at our equalized valuations, because really our state aid formula is dependent on how rich we are as a community or how poor we are as a community. So the richer that we are, the less money we get from the state, and that's essentially the equalization formula. So our equalized valuations are very important, and then also the amount of aid that we get from the state. So starting with pupil count, resident student enrollment, as I mentioned, is really important to us, and that's what drives that revenue limit formula. If you look on page 8, you will see a resident enrollment trend graph, which does give you an idea of where our resident enrollment trends have been. So obviously we're down a little bit from where we were back in 2010-11, but we are really kind of going up and down, 50 students up, 50 students down, 1 up, 1 down. So last year we were only down by 1 resident student. This year we decreased by 42 resident students. And then our summer school program itself, we are allowed to capture what's equated to the value of 1 FTE for a certain amount of minutes that students are in summer school. So for every student, we can count all of their minutes in total, and so we are able to add additional FTEs for those students. And so we have an additional 23 FTEs in 2017-18, and then we added an additional 18 FTEs in 2018-19. And just to give you an idea, in order to get to 1 FTE, our students have to have 48,600 minutes of education during summer school. So we have seen the program grow significantly, thus helping our revenue limit increase. Oops. And again, here is the graph that was on page 8. Equalized valuations. So again, this number isn't determined until October 1st of the current year. And again, our budget year technically starts July 1st. So in October, we find out how much equalized valuation we get. And that number is then helping us determine how much state aid we get and essentially how we can set the levy. So in 2017-18, our equalized valuations went up significantly. They were up by 6.81%, and the state average was only 3.73%. And then in 2018-19, we saw an increase of 4.3%, which was just slightly above the state average of 4%. Our state equalization aids, this is the final, part of the revenue limit formula. So 37.6% of our district's revenue budget is made up by state equalization aid. And that was back in 2017-18. In 2018-19, it's 36.3. So you see we don't really fluctuate too much in state aid, but a very small portion of our revenue is actually coming from the state. The rest is made up through the tax levy and other means. So for 2018-19, our preliminary tax levy, based on those numbers that we just saw, our general fund, this is the general operations of our district. So this is what we levy for general operations, for transportation, for special education. We are then given opportunities to have different tax levies to support other areas of the district. So our debt service fund, Fund 38, is a levy that we are able to levy. We can borrow as a district up to $1 million without having to go to referendum, but those debt payments have to be paid back within our general fund budget. So when we think about the revenue limit formula and the state aid component that's made up of it, and then the tax component includes Fund 10 and Fund 38. The debt service Fund 39 is our referendum debt. So when we go to the taxpayers and ask to pass a referendum, this is what the levy is annually to pay back those bonds that we have asked and had approved by the taxpayers. And the Capital Projects Fund, Fund 41, is also part of that pot of the revenue limit. What the state has done for certain districts, or for all districts, has said you can put money into this Capital Projects Fund, Fund 41. When you spend and pay for expenses out of Fund 41, instead of accounting dollar for dollar toward your next year's shared costs, it actually allows you to amortize the cost of those projects. Because for districts like us, when we spend a certain amount of money, it actually impacts taxes. So if we spend beyond our budget, our tax levy will go up higher the next year. So we want to be sure we're staying within budget, but this gives districts like us the opportunity to spend and amortize those costs, so our tax levy impact is amortized over a number of years. So ultimately, you see that the general fund levy is $25.9 million. Debt service is $108,000. The debt service for referendum is $4.1 million. And the capital projects fund is $2 million. Again, if we didn't have that capital projects fund, that $2 million there, it would all roll up into the general fund, and our general fund levy would be higher. So a total tax levy of $32.2 million. If anybody has any questions while I'm going through this, feel free to stop me. So from last year, our tax levy is estimated to decrease by 0.02%. If you go to page 9, you'll get an idea of how our tax levy and state aid have looked historically. And you'll notice that this will be the 8th year in a row that our tax levy will actually decrease. One thing to note about a decreasing tax levy, because the revenue limit is a pot of money and it's made up of state aid and taxes, we can't expand that pot without the state saying you can expand the pot. So we couldn't create an increase in tax levy even if we wanted to at this point. So the state funding formula helps us keep the levy in check at this point. And again, this is the picture that's in the document. So this shows, as you see, the tax levy line is the line on top, and the state aid is the line on the bottom. So as the state aid line fluctuates, the tax levy has to make up for the difference in order to recoup the funds that we would lose in state aid. So outside of the revenue limit, we are able to increase our revenue pot. And one way to do that is through open enrollment. So these are students that are not residents of our community, but we do allow and have seats open in January before the school year starts. What we do is we evaluate all of our classrooms. We look at where there might be opportunities to add students. Our goal is to make sure that we're adding enough students so that the ones coming in makes up for the ones going out. We never want to have more going out than in, but we also don't want to increase those students to the point where we have to start adding staff or our class sizes get too high. And so in 2017-18, we had a decrease of 19 open enrollment students. And in 2018-19, we only increased by 1. And again, we were very cautious these last 2 years with open enrollment, simply because with the transition through buildings, we wanted to make sure that we weren't overpopulating our classes as we combine buildings. And again, this is evaluated every year. To touch a little bit on fund balance. So again, fund balance is really a point in time number on June 30th that basically says this is how much money you have in the bank. It's not a savings account, because really what it does is it helps support our cash flow over the first 6 months of the year. So we get one aid payment in September, a very small one, and then we get one in December. But until then, we really don't get any other revenues coming in that are really enough to substantiate our operations for those first 6 months. And so we rely on having money to support the cash flow over the first 6 months until we start getting our actual tax payments in January. So in 2017-18, the board did approve the use of some fund balance to support certain projects. Again, the concession stand and bathroom project, the swimming pool, and the bleacher project. And the swimming pool is actually carried over into this current year, and you'll see that reflected in the budget that we'll be bringing forward. And here is a graph. Sorry, I skipped that one. Here is a graph that shows the status of our fund balance. So you can see it's maintained a level. Again, it's in the mid-30s. We were up to 40. But again, the purpose of fund balance, not only for cash flow purposes, it's also meant to help support those larger capital projects that we might have that we couldn't pay for out of the budget annually. And so the board looks at every year where our fund balance is at, what projects we have, and is there a need for us to move forward. So for instance, with the pool, when we knew it was leaking, it was important for us to take care of that. So we assigned fund balance to support that. So you'll see it has decreased, but we're still at a healthy level. So what to expect in 2018-19? So again, one of our areas of focus is being the district of choice. And so what is very important is that we're maintaining salary and benefit levels for staff that are at or above median. Competition is increasing every year for maintaining staff, and so we want to be sure that we are on track to compete, but within the realms of our budget as well. Again, we talked a little bit before about establishing the Education Foundation to financially support the educational goals of the district and look for other ways to bring in revenue to support our schools outside of state aid and taxpayer dollars. And then the completion of all of the projects that were just discussed. We're going to continue looking. We have a group that's going to continue looking at how the projects that we have moving forward. And so how we're looking at our general operating funds, how we're using those to support capital projects and maintenance moving forward. And so we're in the initial stages of that plan and are hoping at the end of this year to have an idea of what our long-range plan looks like for our second phase of master planning. We also talked about developing a unified continuity plan for all departments and buildings. So in the state of an emergency, we know how we're addressing not only emergencies to our buildings themselves, but financially, if something were to happen to our financial records, how we're backing those up. And so we're working on that this year as well. We want to be sure, as we plan for all of our future needs, that we are very aware of the district's debt levels. And if you turn to page 15, this is our debt information. And again, one thing to celebrate this year is we finally paid off all of our Lake Danoon debts, so you'll no longer see that in the book. So we now have the remaining high school debt payments for the next 3 years. And then we're going to drop, and the remaining years that you see we have on the graph is all the $43.18 million that we just had for referendum. So this is essentially all of our debt payments moving forward. And here's the graph. And again, another thing to keep in mind is through the referendum process, really over the last 8 years, even with moving forward with the referendum, we have not increased the tax levy as a result of any of those projects. So what to expect in 2018-19 with general fund revenue. So this is the infamous dollar bill. It can be found on page 11 and 12 in your book. and it made its way into the PowerPoint this year. So you'll see, if you look at how the dollar bill is split up, the property taxes make up a majority of our revenue budget. Equalization aid then is the next portion. We also get some other state aid that's part of the categorical aid. So this is the aid that the governor has talked about over the last couple of years, increasing aid to schools. He has done so, but not in the revenue limit formula, and that's meant to control taxes. This is a separate area of the budget. We also have our open enrollment revenue in there. We have federal sources, so those are all of our federal grants that we receive, both special ed and our title grants. And then we have other local, which is our student fees and other resale items that we have within the budget. Our general fund expenses, so we are a people business, and so a majority of 75% of our expense budget is salaries and benefits. So when we look at our overall budget every year, we really have to plan for how we're looking at salaries and benefits and try and find ways to create savings so that we can, again, keep our salaries and benefits at or above median, but still be fiscally responsible because it is the largest portion of our budget. Personal services, these are contracted services, legal services, those types of things, are the next biggest portion. Our non-capitals, those are all of our supplies, and then capital is all of our equipment that we purchase from year to year. Our debt retirement, this is not the debt for any of the referendum. This is capital lease debt. So we have capital leases that we have annually to support all of our technology infrastructure and projects every year. And so that's paying those payments back. And then insurance, this is all of our workers' comp, our property and liability insurance. And then we have miscellaneous. So again, looking at our total tax levy, the $32.274 million represents a decreasing levy. After this meeting, literally 10 minutes after this meeting, we will approve a different budget and a different levy based on the new information that we received. So the annual meeting information is put together with information that we have through September. Our pupil count, which includes all of our resident counts, as well as our open enrollment, our state aid, and our equalized values don't come until October. So we essentially have to prepare another budget. And again, this is the 8th year that the school will see a tax levy decrease. 2019-20, we don't have much to say at this point. We don't know who the governor is going to be, so we don't know what the state of the biennial budget will look like. But we do begin internally developing that process in November and December, and we start planning for things that we may want to look at changing, increases or decreases to the budget, and we start developing assumptions that we will bring back to the board. And we use an evidence-based and zero-based budget process, so every year we try to look at starting from zero, building the budget up, and then looking at what things we need to implement within our system, whether it's programming, tools, and vice versa, so that we can make sure that we're allocating our resources very specifically to things that we need to address our eye on the goal plan and our strategic plan. Questions? Thank you to those who reached out in advance and asked questions. Appreciate that.
Julie, I have a question.
Yes.
So, a citizen may be looking at this online and they look at page 11 and 12.
Yes.
And you have talked about a balanced budget,
Yes.
but they're looking at our revenues being $700,000 less than our expenditures.
Yes.
Can you explain that?
Yes, I can. So this is the pool project. So we had talked about how the pool project started this past year and has crossed over fiscal years. So we anticipate using about $700,000 more out of fund balance this year to finalize the pool project. However, every year we always look at our budget overall and say, you know, if we do really well, we're self-funded with our health insurance. If we do really well with health insurance and we have money that rolls back, we will obviously use those dollars first before dipping into fund balance. We just know that if we spent the budget exactly as we have it planned, we would have to spend an additional $700,000 for the project.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Mr. Martin?
Can we ask questions?
Absolutely.
Yes, absolutely.
When you start, for this current budget, can you tell us what you put in for expected increases in salary? And if you can't do that because you haven't negotiated yet, can you tell me what it was last year?
Well, actually, we don't negotiate anymore. We don't have unions per se, but we'll be approving it later tonight. It's a 2.3% salary increase.
2.1.
What, 2.1? Oh, sorry.
2.13.
2.13. Missing a number.
CPI.
there.
And that amount
So
is set,
essentially CPI.
yep.
This is a small number. One.
And then the budget that you're gonna approve in the next meeting, is it similar? I mean, is the levy still going down in this one that you're gonna be approving?
Yes, actually, the levy will be going down by the 0.02% as well. So yes.
Absolutely.
Open enrollment, that number, the number of students coming in has been relatively steady, but the number of students going out seems like it's been growing. And why is that? What does that mean? I mean, if some of our students are going to other schools?
It does.
And if so, why for the district?
Yep, it does. Well, I think first and foremost, so every year what we try to do is contact those families and find out why they chose to leave. There is so much choice out there for parents right now, for schools, and very specific needs that students may have, or very specific wants for education, that they can find any school really in the state to go to. And so just with being able to choose where to go, we see a lot of that. We also see a lot of families who it's more convenient for their kids to be in school closer to where they work. And so that is a factor that plays into it as well. Do you have any other thoughts? But we do contact those families every year to find out why, so that if there is a process improvement or a program improvement we can make to retain students, we do look at that annually.
Any other questions? Hearing none, we'll move on to clerk's report. Mr. Schrader is going to fill in for Mr. Buckmaster tonight.
All right. Clerk's report, 2018-2019 budget summary. For 2018-2019, budgeted general fund revenues are $56,775,570, and the budgeted general fund expenditures are $57,492,684, thus representing a proposed balanced budget. The tax levy projection based on the proposed budget is as follows. The general fund, Fund 10, $25,990,643. The debt service fund, Fund 38, $108,210. The debt service fund, Fund 39, $4,119,683. Capital Projects Fund, Fund 41, $2,055,643, and the total property tax levy is $32,274,179. That concludes the clerk's report.
Thank you. Moving on to item 6C, establish of capital expansion fund 41.
Will you read that?
Yeah.
Sure. A motion to vote a tax in the amount of $2,055,643 for the capital expansion fund for the purpose of financing capital expenditures at various district buildings and sites. Now therefore be it resolved by the electors of the Muskego Norway School District, Waukesha, and Racine Counties, Wisconsin, that the tax be levied in the amount of $2,055,643 to create a capital expansion fund for the purpose of financing capital expenditures at various district buildings and sites.
This would be part of that interactive part of the meeting, where we would appreciate if someone would stand and make said motion, and then somebody could stand and second it.
After the motions are made, then we can have discussion.
Absolutely.
So moved, whatever it said.
All right. Could we get a second?
I'll second it.
And just your name and address?
Sharon Hopp, F77W15403, Foxfield Circle.
Thank you very much. Discussion. Any questions on this?
Is there anywhere in here where it says what that $2 million is for? There, it seems $700,000 for the pool, but what's the other?
So the $700,000 on the general operation budget, that's the fund balance piece. 1.5, I'm going to give you exact numbers. 1.5 is for the remaining part of the pool. And then we also have, because we did use budget funds as well to support that cost, And then we had 45,000. Give me 1 second.
We also had, I believe, 100,000 in asphalt repairs throughout the district, and I'm drawing a blank.
I have it here.
While you're looking for that, let's just be clear that capital expansion or improvement would, in the past, come out of the general fund. Correct, Julie?
Correct. Yes.
So what we're attempting to do is that $2 million that we would have had in capital improvements in the general fund, we're moving it into Fund 41, basically for accounting and financial incentives. But go ahead and finish.
So we had 45,000 for parking lot repairs, 35,000 for the boiler at Lake Danu,
Correct.
in addition to the 1.525 million. The remaining then was 4 radios, but in the next phase of the budget, you'll see we actually moved that out because we can't purchase equipment out of there. It has to be a capital project, so that'll actually go down slightly. The
Staff radios.
staff radios, emergency
Communication
radios.
for maintenance staff and teachers.
Sorry,
and
I should have
security.
clarified, not like CD radio.
So is it fair to say that in the past budgets, we did see this 41 account, that basically that 2 million would have been in a
It would
similar
have-
year,
yep.
right in the general fund,
Correct.
Fund 10?
Correct.
Does that answer your questions? Yes. All right. Any other questions? All that being said, and you all get to vote on this as well. All those in favor, say aye. Opposed? Passes unanimously. Thank you. Moving on to item 6D, approval of the tax levy.
Following the discussions of the public hearing, a call for adoption of the levy is made. The following motion would be in order. Be it resolved that the tax for the general district operations in the amount of $25,990,643, debt service, in the amount of $4,227,893, capital expansion in the amount of $2,055,643, for a total combined amount of $32,274,179 be levied on all property, real and personal, which is taxable under state tax laws within the Muskego, Norway School District for the purpose of financing the operations of the public schools of the school district for the year of 2018-2019 pursuant to the budget for this year as presented at the annual meeting.
So moved.
Thank you.
I'll second. Debbie Brownell, W173S7955, Scenic Drive.
Discussion. Any questions? Comments? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes unanimously. Thank you very much. Moving on to 6E, board salaries.
It is up to the citizens voting at the annual meeting to determine what the board salaries will be for the 2018-2019 school year. Currently, the board members receive a salary of $4,565 per year. The president receives $4,947 per year. A motion is in order that the electors of the Muskego, Norway School District set the school board members' salaries at blank for the 2018-2019 school year.
So, again, this is the part that takes interaction from the cloud, so you can put in any number, percentage, whatever you'd like on this. Mr. Brownbaum.
Jim Brownell, W173. I move that the school district, the school board salaries be set at $4,662, which is,
The 2.13%.
3%. And the president received $5,052.
Can I get a second?
John Englehart, W192, S7149, Hillside Drive. Second.
Discussion, questions, comments? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Opposed? Passes unanimously. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Moving on to item 6F, payment of actual and necessary expenses.
It is also up to the citizens voting at the annual meeting to authorize the payment of actual and necessary expenses of the school board members when traveling outside the district. A motion is in order that the electors of the Muskego Norway School District authorize the payment of actual and necessary expenses of school board members when traveling outside the school district in performance of their actual duties.
So moved.
Thank you.
I'll second. Howard Klein, S85, W19223, Green River.
Thank you. Comments, questions?
Why don't you explain what this is?
So on record, say this is the dumbest motion that we have to make.
It's state statute.
Dumbest.
We don't disagree with you. Essentially, it tells you if we go like to a conference somewhere, we can put down, we can get reimbursed for our mileage, if there's lodging. I think you're probably even reimbursed under WASBA at this point. Yeah. It's almost never used, and if it is, it's relatively minimal, but the state requires it.
What kind of numbers do we come up with afterwards?
Probably under $500 a year.
Yeah, it's just mileage for the state convention, which is in Milwaukee, and parking, and any
You
meals.
get reimbursed for parking? All these years?
Yeah.
I've been writing that off in my work. Does that answer the question? All right. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes unanimously. Thank you very much. Moving on to 6G, 2019 annual meeting date and time.
An additional responsibility of the citizens voting in the annual meeting is to authorize the establishment of a date and time for the next annual meeting. A motion is in order that the electors of the Muskego Norway School District authorize the school board to establish a date and time of the next annual meeting, such meeting to be held between the period of May 15, 2019 and October 31st, 2019, with appropriate advance notification to electors in accordance with Wisconsin State Statute 120.08.
So moved.
Thank you.
Second.
Thank you. Questions, comments?
I'd just like to say, let's not put it on October 31st.
We typically don't. Yeah. Typically it falls.
The Monday before.
This is one of the later ones we've had. A lot of times it's been on the 24th or 25th.
Yeah.
So it's usually a week forward from here.
Typically a Monday.
Yeah,
Yeah.
typically a Monday, yes.
Monday before.
It would either be the 21st or the 28th next year.
We try to avoid that if we can. All right, all those in favor say aye. Opposed? Passes unanimously, thank you. Moving on to 6H, other business, disposal of surplus property.
Board Policy 7310, disposal of surplus property, directs the disposal of obsolete equipment. A motion is in order that the electors of Muskego Norway School District authorize the disposal of equipment per board policy.
Thank you, miss.
So moved. Debbie Brownell.
Second.
Thank you. Questions?
Second dumbest.
We just had a big, how did this sale go?
Yeah, how did that go on
It was really well
Thursday?
attended. I think we'll have a second sometime, probably in the evening or a weekend. But we had 40 people waiting at the doorway of Muskego Elementary the day when we opened, so made about $2,500, and it was good. We probably can't do it anytime soon because they're in the next month or so, because we have the heat off there, so it's pretty cold, so maybe spring.
Also, if we have larger pieces of equipment, there's a website that most school districts and cities post things on called Wisconsin Surplus. It's actually interesting to go on once in a while. There's kind of interesting things: computers, monitors, computer parts, vehicles, pianos, I guess. All kinds of things. I've bought stuff on there, but we do post things on there as well. So, any questions? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Passes unanimously. Item 7, adjournment.
Motion is in order that the electors of the Muskego Norway School District adjourn the annual meeting.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We are adjourned at 8:16.